Okay, so this will be a longer video. I'm going to go over an interview that I had with a tech company. This is a startup, relatively small startup, maybe less than 100 employees, pretty small engineering team. I would be like employee number maybe 10, maybe 9, I'm not sure. So this is a phone screen with an interviewer, and the interview had basically 3 questions. And the first question had kind of 3 sub-questions. And I was told that this was an open notes interview, but I didn't need to use anything. Although I don't know that ChatGPT would have been okay to use. I think it would have made the interview very easy if I would have used it. So that's an interesting question, but I'm going to put that aside for now. Okay, so question one was sum an array in 3 different ways, using a for loop, using a while loop, and using recursion. For loop and while loop are extremely straightforward. Recursion, I'm ashamed to admit I actually did stumble on, and he had to give me a hint. This is because I've always been bad at recursion, and because I don't use it a lot at work. It does come up sometimes, but it's pretty rare. So I'm rarely thinking about how to use recursion, unless I'm solving like LeetCode code style problems, which I haven't been doing a lot lately. So despite a slight stumble, I got through that question. And I would just recommend that if you haven't thought about recursion lately, that is something you kind of need in your back pocket, unfortunately, when you're doing these kinds of interviews, at least historically. Second question was basically how to weave together 2 different arrays. So given array ABC and given array 1, 2, 3, how do you output A1, B2, 3C? And you had to handle some edge cases, like what if one array is longer than the other, but it's pretty straightforward. You just need to keep track of if there's leftover from one array or something and then add it to the end. The last question was, given an n, return the sum of all Fibonacci sequence numbers up to that n. I think this is a pretty classic question, although I believe I've only had it maybe once or twice before in like 30 plus interviews. I'm not sure. I don't think it's like an amazing interview question, but I guess it shows some like problem solving skills. And if you haven't looked that up before, it is kind of a good basic problem solving question to understand, and it doesn't take long. So, reflecting a bit on the interview, I mean, this is nothing crazy. This is just to get to the next stage. One good thing about this kind of interview of doing like several small problems versus like one really hard problem is that it lets you give an interviewee, me, more breadth. Whereas because I stumbled on the recursion thing, I had a chance to make up for it in the rest of the interview. Whereas if you ask just one really hard recursion problem and they're not that good at recursion, then you've just wasted both people's time. Anyway, yeah, that was the interview that I had recently, and let me know if you have any thoughts or questions.